It's double fight week, ladies and gentlemen! Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Slingin Leather, Southern California's official combat sports show. I am your host, Scuba Steve, and I could not be more excited to bring this video today, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do we got this one, we got two, count them, two, going on for the double fight week extravaganza. Ladies and gentlemen, we got two huge events this Saturday. UFC 291 in Salt Lake City, as well as Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. for the unification of boxing's welterweight title, both on Saturday night. And we're going to be breaking down both events for you guys today. But first, we have some huge business to attend to in mixed martial arts, ladies and gentlemen. UFC 291, arguably fight card of the year after one of the greatest fight cards I've ever seen at UFC 290. We have so many returns in terms of fan favorites and great fights, but we have to discuss this BMF title match. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are bringing back Jorge Masvidal's title for the UFC's BMF. And we have so much other stuff to go through, ladies and gentlemen. We have the number one contender fight at light heavyweight. We have killers stacked on killers in this event, ladies and gentlemen. And all of them really happen to be likable. And it's going to be tough picking this one, ladies and gentlemen, because I just about love every single guy in this main card. But in mixed martial arts, in this industry, we got to make decisions, don't we? You guys need to bet. I need to give you the insight, and we gonna do this. Main card starts at 3:30 Pacific. Main card starts at 5:30 Central for my friends over in Chicago. And starting off this card, we have one of my absolute favorites, the number 12th ranked UFC welterweight Michael Chiesa taking on Kevin Holland. And ladies and gentlemen, despite what you might say about Michael Chiesa, he's on a 2-fight skid. He is 4-2 in his last 6 and has beat some of the better guys in his division. He has been always known for his grappling and his and his wrestling, which has always been of the highest pedigree. He showed that in The Ultimate Fighter. He showed that throughout his UFC career and earned 6 UFC submissions en route to doing so. And his obvious path to victory in this fight is to take Kevin Holland to the ground and utilize his strength, because once he's on top, once he's able to gain top position, he is absolutely dominant. A lot of wrestlers are not good off the bottom, and this stays consistent with Michael Chiesa, but I do believe that he is going to absolutely need to fight tooth and nail to get Kevin Holland to the ground in this fight. And as for Kevin Holland, he is on a bit of a rough patch as well. He's 3-2 in his last 5. However, this man is an absolute dog, and he is cut from that cloth. He is known for his unorthodox striking, studies kung fu as well as jiu-jitsu, complements his unorthodox style on the feet with a very solid ground game as well, and does a great job of escaping positions and uses his great jiu-jitsu to keep the fight on the feet. And I think this is his best path to victory in this fight. I think if he's able to stay out of danger on the ground, which I think he has the grappling pedigree to do, if he's able to stay out of damage on the ground and is able to keep the fight on the feet, I think he's very, very much going to put it on Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is a great fighter, and he has a lot of heart, but I don't really see him being able to match Kevin Holland on the feet, leading me to pick Kevin Holland by TKO, my boy from Fontana, California, and now from Houston, Texas. But I see Kevin Holland taking this one by TKO. Next, we have one of my absolute favorites, if not my absolute favorite fighter of all time, Tony El Cucuy Ferguson taking on Bobby Green in the lightweight division. Even though Tony Ferguson is on a 5-fight skid, 4 of his last 5 opponents have fought for titles, and 2 of them have become champion. And in the lead up to this fight week, Tony has seemed a little bit different. In the build up to the Nate Diaz fight, we saw a little bit of a different Tony. He seemed to be falling off the rails a little bit. But this week, his coach from Grand Valley State, Dave Mills, has said that he looks different than ever before. He looks driven, he looks motivated, and he's looking to beat the brakes off of Bobby Green in this fight, whether it comes on the feet or on the ground. He has some of the most unorthodox striking on the feet with his razor-sharp elbows and his incredible knees. Not to mention the high-level jiu-jitsu that he possesses. And this, I think, is going to be the biggest talent discrepancy in the fight. Tony is a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt and is one of the best grapplers in the lightweight division, no matter how you divide the division. And I think with this advantage, Tony's definitely going to try to take this fight to the ground. After all, he's on a 5-fight skid, and despite him craving the entertaining fight, I do believe that he is craving for this win. He said he's got 5 more fights and a title, and then he's out of here. So if he really wants to start this off on a high note, he's going to have to take Bobby down at some point in this fight. That is going to be a huge difference maker. Bobby Green is, in his own right, very, very good. Despite being 2-4 in his last 6, his boxing is some of the most unorthodox. He keeps his hands completely down and utilizes almost a bit of a Philly shell, almost reminiscent of Sean Strickland in the middleweight division. But he has excellent wrestling. He's always had great wrestling. He was a collegiate wrestler and almost never uses his wrestling offensively. He almost exclusively uses it to stay on his feet. However, coming off a knockout loss to Drew Dober, he is really going to have to be cautious with keeping his hands down against one of the most dangerous and one of the sharpest strikers the lightweight division has ever seen. Not to mention, Tony Ferguson has the longest reach in the lightweight division at 76.5 inches. Bobby Green, only having a 71-inch reach, will have a 5.5-inch reach disadvantage to overcome in this fight. And I think with the level that Tony is on the ground, I think that the lack of offensive wrestling by Bobby Green and the hunger that Tony seems to have now is going to be the biggest difference in this fight. This, I believe, I've said it 3 fights in a row now. I think this is where Tony Ferguson finally gets back on track. I think he has a very winnable fight in front of him now, and I think he has the tools to take this one by submission. That's right, Tony Ferguson hasn't locked up a Darce choke in quite some time, but I think that with Bobby Green, I think he has more than enough opportunities to get the fight to the ground and capitalize on a mistake that Bobby Green might make in one of these exchanges. Next, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the number 7th ranked UFC welterweight in the world, taking on the number 15th ranked Michel Pereira, and these two is going to put on probably the most entertaining fight of the night, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be the biggest dogfight. We're going to talk about the biggest dogfight in this card. Don't worry. But this, I feel, has 2 of the most unique stylistic matchups going against each other. Stephen Thompson is one of the best karate artists in the UFC's history. He has the pedigree of the likes of Lyoto Machida, the likes of Michael Venom Page, the likes of some of the greatest point fighting backgrounds we've ever seen in the UFC. And Stephen Thompson, despite being 40 years of age, does not look like he is getting any slower or any less elusive than he already is. He's one of the best at getting in and getting out of exchanges by using his incredible footwork and incredible explosion timing. And he does a great job of avoiding damage as well. He's super elusive in the cage and does a great job of circling once he's in trouble. So I do believe that he is going to need to stay patient and composed. Thompson's doing the right thing. He's getting to Salt Lake City early. Because of this altitude, it's going to play a big factor in all of these matchups. But I think that Stephen Thompson can be the more efficient fighter if he's able to maintain his composure and pick the right spots to explode into his strikes. Now, Michel Pereira is an absolute puzzle. He's on a 5-fight win streak right now and fights like an absolute wild man. He uses things that we haven't seen since the likes of Anthony Showtime Pettis. He uses flips, he uses wall kicks, he uses incredible methods to pass guard. In a previous fight against Nico Price, he did a backflip. As Nico Price was protesting that he had kicked him in the face, he went straight into mount, which led to Nico Price's undoing. Masterful work in creating chaos and staying composed in his own chaos did Michel Pereira do in that sense. However, I think this is the fighter that the altitude is going to affect the most. With his explosive style, with all the spectacular things he does in the cage, this is all incredibly taxing on his gas tank. And we've seen in previous fights that Michel Pereira is more than capable of gassing out. He is not the volume fighter, and by using the style that he does, he puts himself at risk for gassing out in every single fight that he takes part in. And even though I think he will have some great success in the early rounds, I think he will do well early in this fight, I don't see him doing as well in rounds 2 and 3. I see him gassing out about halfway through round 2, and I see Stephen Thompson taking over and landing great shots after that. Who knows? Stephen Thompson could bring back a page from the Jake Ellenberger fight and hit Michel Pereira with the wheel kick, but I don't see really Thompson being able to finish Pereira in this. I think he does a good enough job to stay in the fight despite how gassed he gets, leading me to pick Stephen Thompson by decision in this fight. 40 years old, age is but a number for Stephen Thompson. He's one of the best strikers in the welterweight division, even at his age, and I think we're all going to see this on Saturday night. Next, in the co-main event, we have the number 1 contender fight in the light heavyweight division right now. The number 3 ranked Jan Blachowicz is taking on the number 2 ranked middleweight and former middleweight champion Alex Pereira. Now, Jan Blachowicz seems to be one of the most interesting matchups that the UFC could have given Alex at 205. Being that Jan Blachowicz is probably the biggest and heaviest feeling and looking 205 pounder out there. This dude legitimately looks like a heavyweight. And when he steps into the cage, he's not stepping in at 205. He's probably stepping somewhere close to 230 or 220. This guy is an absolute absolute force of a man. He does an incredible job on the feet that is really facilitated by his incredible power, the legendary Polish power, as he loves to talk about. Coupling that with his great body kicks, he did some great work with his body kicks against Dominic Reyes in his championship-winning effort, and I think this is going to be very interesting to see how Alex will do with shots to the body. Izzy never really heavily targeted the body in his fight, so it's really going to be interesting to see how he's going to be able to take shots from an incredibly big guy. Jan Blachowicz destroyed Israel Adesanya in their fight based solely on his size. Israel Adesanya went into that fight 191 pounds. 185 is his natural weight class. Alex Pereira's arguably fighting 2 weight classes down when he went down to middleweight. Some argue he could be the best heavyweight in the world, let alone the best middleweight. And since he's fighting at 205, I think he's still going to be big enough to pose some problems for Alex, especially in the striking. You can never argue the nuclear option that he has in both hands at all times, especially the left hook. One of the most devastating left hooks we've ever seen, and now how he knocked out Sean Strickland. And I think that despite all the nuclear options and despite the power, despite the incredibly sneaky leg kicks that Alex Pereira possesses, I think that just based on how Jan Blachowicz did against Israel Adesanya, I don't see Alex Pereira doing any better. I see Jan taking this fight down around the second round or so. I think he's going to legitimately see if he can stand up with Alex. I don't think he's going to get knocked out. I think Blachowicz has a head that's like a thumb. It's like a peanut butter jar where I don't think he's going to get necessarily put out cold by any of Alex's shots, despite the incredible power that Alex possesses. I think he's going to be able to use his wrestling and take this fight to the ground in the second round and be able to come away with this victory by ground and pound, by TKO. I don't see Jan Blachowicz going out and submitting Alex Pereira. He hasn't done that to anyone since, and I don't think this is going to be his path to victory. I legitimately see him taking this fight to the ground and tiring Alex out. Eventually, Alex is going to be mounted and completely defenseless, and I see the fight being stopped in this fashion. So I believe Jan Blachowicz going to put Alex Pereira on his first 2-fight losing skid in quite some time. And ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't hold my excitement for our previous main event, and I am really struggling to hold my excitement right now because arguably I am so much more excited about this main event than any other main event I have seen in recent memory. These two guys, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, are so evenly matched and are so good and so entertaining. This fight has no choice but to deliver. This has not only Fight of the Year written all over it, I believe that this is a guarantee for Fight of the Year. I don't see anyone else legitimately going out there and putting it on the line like these two do, fight in and fight out. And Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje have been on very, very similar paths as of late. They both lost to Charles Oliveira, and they both lost to the champs. They both lost to Khabib, and they both lost to Charles Oliveira. They have both gotten wins over Michael Chandler. They both have 4 finishes in their last fights. They are both incredibly strong-handed finishers that are incredible at boxing and love keeping the fight on the feet. However, I don't see anyone, despite Dustin Poirier's incredible jiu-jitsu pedigree and despite his incredible experience on the ground, I see this being the dogfight to end all dogfights. I don't see how this fight is not only not fight of the year, I think it could be theoretically fight of the decade if we really see something special. We can talk about Dustin Poirier's arguably superior boxing over anyone in the UFC. We could talk about his incredible jiu-jitsu pedigree, especially how it was shown in his last fight and how he choked out Michael Chandler. And I think all of the skills are going to offset each other. I don't think Justin's going to be able to use his jiu-jitsu in this fight. I don't think Dustin's going to be able to use his jiu-jitsu against Gaethje in this fight because of Gaethje's incredible wrestling defense. And I really see this fight being won or lost by either man in the later rounds. But there is a huge discrepancy in how these two react in longer form fights. Justin Gaethje is known for gassing out. Sure, he had the nose surgery. Sure, he's going to have a superior gas tank. But I don't see him being able to keep the pressure as Dustin Poirier has been shown to do late into fights. Dustin is the superior fighter late in rounds definitively. And it showed in their first fight about how Dustin was able to weather the storm and was able to catch Gaethje coming in during a leg kick. I can't even give you guys a legitimate blueprint on how this fight is going to go because I feel like it is going to be absolute mayhem no matter what. But based on Justin Gaethje's lack of experience and lack of fight time in championship rounds, and I think with Dustin Poirier's composure and constant pressure, I do see this fight going the distance. I know so many people have been saying that there's no way this fight goes 25 minutes. And even Dustin Poirier said if this fight does go 25 minutes, Justin and him are going to be talking about it on the way over to the hospital because that is exactly where they will be going. However, I feel that in this ambulance ride, Dustin Poirier will be the victor, and Dustin Poirier will emerge victorious this weekend over Justin Gaethje and keeping the BMF belt in Coconut Creek, Florida for American Top Team. And that is the card of the year, ladies and gentlemen. I'm already saying it is going to be absolute fireworks from top to bottom, and I can't wait. I simply cannot wait, and I am so happy this fell on the same weekend as Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. We got a second video to post for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you soon, and thank you for tuning in to Slingin Leather.